been 40 years, a lot of new information, a new way of looking at this fascinating character. A much new perspective. I felt a new biography was needed because people were confusing Huey Long with his brother Earl Long with Willie Stark. It was Willie Stark.
Willie Stark is the fictional character of All the King's Men, written by Robert Penn Warren.
Yeah, Robert Penn Warren's Pulitzer novel, All the King's Men, his prime character is Willie Stark. And Willie is nowhere near as egregious as Huey. In fact, you cannot, in a novel, create a character as fascinating or as controversial or as just outrageous than Huey Long. In a novel, it would work. Only in history does it actually advance. So after going through T. Harry Williams, I felt a shorter work was needed, not just because it was easier to read, but because I wanted to paint a very clear and three-dimensional picture of Huey, the person. I wanted the people of Oregon and Maine and California and the rest of the country to know who Huey was. The great things he did, the danger he posed for democracy. The danger he posed for democracy. A man who did more good and more harm than ever. A man who did more good and more harm in an American state than ever. And that an American state can truly and quickly turn into a dictatorship. It can happen. Fortunately, it hasn't happened much. I think Dr. Kennedy's thesis of individualism is very strong here to prevent accidents like Huey Long taking place. A lot of things had to come together at the same time. Institutional, cultural, and just plain Huey, the individual. I felt, just my personal opinion, I felt the bio of Huey was needed. It was more lyrical. I tried to make it more like a novel. The story of Huey is too good to be written badly. It was not easy to write. I spent 3 years of research and an entire extra year just editing the book. It needed to be a page turn. And fortunately, Huey did that for me. I wanted people to read a page and say, my God, he can't go any further than this. And then when they turn the page, and he indeed does, it happens page after page. And I didn't make that up. That's Huey. How can you take over the legislature like this and order all these personal bills to be passed? How can that happen? Then the next day he does something even more egregious. That's the way it really happened, and I wanted my readers to get a feel of what political life was like in Louisiana during Huey's reign of power, which coincidentally is over the first years of the Depression. He did a lot. As I say in the introduction, he dominated every aspect of government in his native state, not just at the state level, but in every parish and town. Think of that. He used political whim to hire thousands of state government workers, from cabinet secretaries to laborers shoveling gravel on the highways. Thousands of local government workers, including teachers, sheriff's deputies, courthouse clerks, all were personally chosen by Huey. He had teachers fired because a relative was against him politically. A relative. He was crossing the drawbridge one time, and the drawbridge was open, and he had to wait. And he got out and talked to the drawbridge operator, and had a good time, good conversation. got back to the office and looked up to see whose political allegiance the drawbird operator was to, and it wasn't to him. He had him fired. He liked the guy. He liked him. But he had him fired from that job because Huey Long had one goal. It wasn't money, sex, food, or anything. It was pure power. Pure power. From the day he came out of the womb, he was from a large family, and it wasn't a poor family. He was by the economics of the times, it was a middle class family in North Louisiana. But he was one of the latter children in the family. I think he was like 7. He was in charge. Even before he could walk, he was telling the whole family what to do. I know that I have 2 kids. My son is a great passive person, goes along with anything, and my daughter is in charge. When she was 3 years old, she told us where we were going to eat. And we all did it. It was one of those personalities. You couldn't punish Huey. He would tell his father, look, you can beat me, I'll cry, but I'm right. And it's not going to change it. And he was consistent in that. He was a brilliant man. He was quick. He had a photographic memory. He meets all those criteria of great leaders. He had tremendous energy, very focused, again, a quickness of mind. So he controlled all of state government. He orchestrated elections. He added voting lists, directed the counting of ballots. In St. Bernard Parish, about 30 miles below New Orleans, they had people registered to vote named Clark Gable, Clairvaux, and even trees were registered to vote in the parish. In one precinct, it came back that everybody voted in alphabetical order. Think about it. Obviously, they put it together after. He assaulted the newspapers, freedom of the press. He offered a gag law that would have prohibited newspapers from printing any malicious, scandalous, or defamatory stories about him. He used the state militia, the state police, as his own personal police force. He would arrest rival politicians. He kidnapped one here in New Orleans, took him down to the swamp for 2 weeks while the election was going. Not a big deal. I was telling Whit and Dr. Kennedy and Michael, we were walking past the Hotel Monteleone last night, and I stopped and I said, in the lobby here, it's a beautiful hotel. Go down Royal Street, we'll see it. Big chandelier. Well, under that chandelier, one afternoon, Huey got in a fist fight with the lieutenant governor, and they beat the crap out of each other. And they're lying on the floor as the guests are trying to eat their fried oysters in the restaurant next door. Crazy. He packed the courts. Not only the Supreme Court, the District Court, but just down to the JP level, every justice of the peace. He packed every police jury. But most blatantly, he dominated the state legislature. He ordered it to slavishly pass hundreds of bills that increased his power, destroyed his enemies, and stretched the very limits of constitutionalism. Speaking of the legislature, can you imagine in any of the states of the Union where you get a new governor? The new governor is not of the same party as the legislature. But he or she comes in and he says, I'm going to choose the Speaker of the House and I'm going to choose the President of the Senate. In one state, that's done. Huey did it in Louisiana, and it's still done today. I tell people from out of state, they think I'm crazy. So what about separation of powers? What about party politics? What about informal power of the government? And that is a legacy of Huey. Even the most benign governor, Kathleen Blanco, a few years ago, very democratic woman in all the ways, she still chose the Speaker and President Pro Tem. But Huey did a lot of good. He did more good for the people of Louisiana than any politician before or since. And I would bet you he probably did more good for the people of the state than almost any state governor you can find. State governors don't have a lot of power. They're very limited. Huey just ignored those limits. In fact, a legislator says, you know, Huey, what about the Constitution? He says, I am the Constitution. And he meant it. In the midst of the Great Depression, when there is no money in state coffers, when there are no jobs, he built 9,000 miles of roads, more than 100 bridges over swamps and rivers. He pulled Louisiana from the horse and buggy days into the age of modern transportation. Those bridges, those roads are still out there. They haven't been repaired since Huey, but they're still there. How did he build them? There's no money. There's no people. He still did it. That focus. He wouldn't take no for an answer. He gave free school books to students, allowing thousands of poor children to attend school. His adult night schools taught 175,000 illiterate Louisianans to read, including many poor blacks. First schooling they'd ever gotten.